We're now joined by Coach Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma. Coach, welcome, and your thoughts about the upcoming season.
Yeah, it's great to be here. A couple months ago, didn't obviously think I would be here doing this at this time. It's been, probably best described as a whirlwind since June the 7th. Tough to describe kind of all the emotions that went into that day and that decision, and still a little bit of a dream for me. But such a unique situation. Normally when there's a change in the head coaching position, so much else has changed as well, as far as bringing in a new staff. A lot of times, getting to know players, starting to develop those relationships, and what made this so unique, I think, was the continuity that was kept with the decision. It's made it definitely a lot easier on me. Think about all I've done in the last month, but not having to hire 10 new coaches, not having to get to know new players and develop those relationships, people within the program, support staff. We felt like there was so much good going on with Oklahoma football that I think Coach said it best. He didn't want to derail that. He wanted to continue that. He was very, very good to me in the last several years, helped me to feel as prepared, I think, as you could for this position, in being a first-time head coach. Spent a lot of time with him, especially this last year, going over as many different things of a program as you could imagine, and he knew eventually that I did want to be a head coach, and was so gracious with his time and knowledge, and certainly look forward to using him, as a resource, as somebody that I can visit with, bounce things off of here in the future. So he's just been tremendous. Our players, I appreciate them so much for just the way they handled this. I told them in our first meeting, they signed up to come play for a different head coach. I wasn't the guy that came in and recruited them, and I don't feel like that they should have to accept me just because now I'm the head coach. I feel like that's something that I should have to earn, and I told them that I would give them every ounce that I have to get that done. Our staff has just been tremendous, again, in the way they've handled it. They've been 100% with me and for this program from the beginning, and then able to add a guy I know very well, and this league knows very well, in Ruffin McNeil, has I think has just enhanced us. Thrilled going into the season. I feel like we've got a very, very strong team coming back with some new exciting young players that we're excited to infuse our team with. Obviously a very, very demanding schedule that you get every year in the Big 12, and another demanding non-conference schedule, just like we play at OU every single year, that we're really looking forward to. Probably the thing I'm most excited about with our team is our overall team leadership. I was telling a couple of guys earlier, I felt like there was really 10 or 12 guys that we could have brought to this media day today. It's interesting because the leaders are really spread throughout the team, where in a lot of my experiences, you've maybe have one group that was stronger with leadership than the other, one side of the ball than the other, but it's really spread out through this team. And guys that are very mature. We've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of ball and played very quality ball. We've got some obviously experienced players back at key positions, obviously with Baker at quarterback, with all of our offensive line returning, and in fact all of our top 8 offensive linemen returning. We're going to be very experienced in the secondary with Steven and Jordan Thomas, Jordan Parker, and then we think have one of the deepest linebacking corps in the country, headed up by Obo, by Caleb Kelly, by Emmanuel Bill. So, really, really, again, excited about this team, very excited to be here and for the start of the season. So with that, we'll get started.
Okay, we'll take a question on the outside right to begin with, and then we'll move up to the front.
Hey, Lincoln, Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. Before the Texas game last year, your biggest games weren't necessarily Baker's best games, but Texas and beyond, he really seemed to play better in those marquee type of games. 2 questions. How important is his play in big games for you guys this season? And do you sense that he maybe has turned a corner in his play in those big games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I think anytime you play against great competition, the standard's going to be higher. You know, we played in some pretty big games our first year, you know, against Oklahoma State and winning the Big 12 championship. You know, Baylor on the road that year that he played very well in too. So you're going to have a little bit of hit and miss when you're playing great opponents. But there's no doubt. I think he's gotten more comfortable as a quarterback, you know, within our system, more comfortable as a quarterback with our current players. And obviously having great quarterback play in big-time games is always, you know, such a huge part of it. So, yeah, we're thrilled about his progress. You know, I think he really, you know, took some strides this spring. You know, we've really tried to focus on, not only with him but our whole team, on, you know, ways we can, you know, improve kind of this process right now so that we play better early in the season. You know, we felt like the last 2 years that at the end of the seasons we were playing as good as anybody in the country, and we've got to do a better job so that we hit our stride a little bit earlier, him included.
Got a question in the middle left.
Hi, Coach. Sam Mills of Reddit College Football. Having lost both Pirine and Mixon to the NFL, what are your thoughts on your current running back situation, and who do you think is going to be stepping up this year?
Yeah, no question. I mean, you on one hand, you lose two great players, you know, guys that were incredibly productive in this league, and I think we'll both have long NFL careers. But you know, maybe one position, maybe more than any, that at the University of Oklahoma over the history that has always been able to reload is that position. You know, we've got kind of a unique group. You know, Rodney Anderson, you know, comes to mind. Obviously, he's missed the last 2 years because of injuries, but he's had to fight through a ton. He's a great worker. You know, he stacks up there physically as good as anybody we've had at that position, including Joe and Samaje. But we know he's got to go prove it on the field. You know, Abdul Adams played some for us as a third back last year and played well when he did. Had a great spring, was one of our most improved players. I think he'll definitely be in the mix, as well as Marcellus Sutton, a junior college player that we signed, also went through spring ball with us. He's a little bit smaller, got a little bit more explosiveness to him. And then the two freshmen that we signed, Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks, you know, we feel like are guys that you never know if a freshman's going to be ready, but you pop on the tape of those guys and see what we've seen physically, and you see some hints that they may be. So we're going to have an open mind about it, and it's as wide open as it could be, and we'll play the best guys, whether it's one guy getting most of the carries, two guys like last year, or, you know, even as much as 3 or 4.
Question on the right, halfway back.
Cedric Golden, Austin, American Statesman. Lincoln, what were the biggest lessons you learned under Bob Stoops, and also do you anticipate using his counsel as this season wears on?
I'll definitely use his counsel. I mean, I think, you know, both with Bob and with Coach Switzer, I've got, you know, two guys there that did it as high level as anybody has ever done it, both obviously at Oklahoma, and guys that are, you know, ready and willing at any point, which I'm very thankful for. I learned a lot from him. One of the most impressive things to me was he always had a great sense, I thought, for the pulse of the team, which I think is so important for the head coach. You're going to have, you know, decisions that come up that you've got to make that could go either way, and you've got to have an understanding of where the team is and what's best for the team in that current situation. I thought there were times when even as a staff we didn't totally agree with him, but now looking back on it, he just had a unique sense of that. And, you know, it's a little difficult to explain, but in the moment you could really see it. So had some great conversations with him about that and kind of how he developed that and kept tabs on it. And he was, in my opinion, one of the best to ever do it.
Got a question on the left, and then we'll go back up to the front in a minute.
Saad Yusuf, ESPN Dallas Radio. Filling in for Bob as a head coach is one thing, but do you also feel the added pressure of the impact that he had on the conference as the Big 12 as a whole? Do you feel that pressure as well?
Not really, just because I know that if we do our job well, like has been done at Oklahoma over the past several years, that will be a positive for this conference. You know, I think that's something where you got to take care of the small things, and then hopefully we can have that impact. You know, we've, you know, just in the last 2 years have been in the top 5 and been in the playoff once, and honestly we're one game away non-conference-wise from most likely being in it again last year. So, you know, I think, you know, if we continue to do a good job on our part, it'll be great for Oklahoma and great for the Big 12.
Question on the aisle, halfway back.
Hey, Coach. Nick Kruger, Rivals.com. I just wanted to ask, after Coach Stoops stepped down, there seems to be hesitation with recruiting whenever head coaches leave. With you, it seemed to actually pick things up over the past couple weeks and months. Outside of the program's tradition and some familiarity with you as an offensive coordinator, what sort of things have you been able to do to tell recruits to keep them interested and enthusiastic about the program?
Well, it's a great program to sell. You know, that's the best thing about selling something is if you got something really good to sell, you know, it's a great start. I don't know that's anything really different. We had some guys that we thought were close anyways, and I think they recognize the continuity, like I talked about in the opening statement, with the staff, with the program, and the direction we're going. You know, been able to start to develop relationships with some guys on both sides of the ball, so when we had the head coaching change, it's not like I was a new guy that they did not know me. Kind of, you know, the same point I made about our current players. There was already that sense of familiarity, and then our staff has just done a great job. We've got a little bit of momentum with it. I think our brand new football facility has been a big part of it, being able to get some guys in there and see that I'm going to walk in here and train and have my locker room and all that in the best football facility in the country. And so I think all those combined have given us a ton of momentum.
Question on the front.
Joe Helmer, OUinsider.com. Lincoln, when Bob took over the program, wasn't really in a great spot, but now you're taking over a program that's obviously in a very good spot. Back-to-back Big 12 championships, obviously the playoff 2 years ago. How much can that help you sustain the success, the state of the program right now?
Yeah, you know, coaches have always had differing thoughts on that, right? Would you rather take over the one that's struggling so you know, maybe the standards are a little bit lower, or the one that's better? I've always envisioned it being more like this. Of course, you get the pressure with it. Of course, the expectations are there to win, like they always are at Oklahoma. But that's something that I enjoy and something that our staff enjoys, our players. That's why you come to play and coach at Oklahoma is to win and to win big. And it's always been like that. And if you don't enjoy that sense of pressure and those expectations, then it's probably not the place for you. And so, you know, I understand the good and bad with it, but there's pressure and expectations, but I also see opportunity, you know, opportunity to continue to win championships, to chase national championships, and to do it in the right way. And so I see a great opportunity that I'm thrilled to be a part of.
Question on the left.
Tom Keegan, KUSports.com. Your brother Garrett is also very young for the position he's in at Kansas. What do you attribute that to? Did you guys talk football around the dinner table as long as you can remember, or you just have the right brains, or what do you think it is?
He would say that he had the right brains, probably. Yeah, we grew up in a football family. You know, my dad, even my grandfather, they were all quarterbacks at our high school, and so football was always a big part of our lives, even though there wasn't a coaching influence, you know, from our parents or grandparents. Yeah, I don't know exactly what you attribute it to. I mean, I was lucky to get a start young enough at Texas Tech, and then you know, and then it helped open some doors for me to get me that opportunity, and then I was able to do the same thing for him as a player, and then he's taken it and ran with it and done a great job, you know, in his own right. So, you know, I think we've both worked hard and grew up in a great family for it, but also been, you know, fortunate to have some early opportunities.
Question on the aisle right.
Hey, Coach. Brady Trantham, LandGrantGauntlet.com. You talked about the continuity from Stoops and to now, especially with the players. But has the addition of Ruffin McNeil really helped solidify probably about as comfortable as a first-year head coaching job could be?
Definitely. I mean, with our history together, you know, how could it not be? You know, all the years together at Texas Tech, the 5 years together, you know, at East Carolina, the different experiences that we went through together as, you know, as fellow assistant coaches, and then he becomes the defensive coordinator at Tech, you know, and then, you know, the situation goes down at the Alamo Bowl. He gets thrust in the head coaching position and me into the offensive coordinator position, you know, just a couple of days before the game. He gets his first head job. I go with him to East Carolina. I mean, all the different things you go through there. So we have a ton of history, a lot of trust built up. And then I think it just fit, too, within our staff, in that, you know, he and Mike get along together great and have, you know, very similar philosophies in a lot of ways. and I have always felt like defensive line is one of the most critical, if not the most critical position in football. So to be able to pair him up with Calvin Thibodeau and form what we believe is one of the best, 1-2 combinations of D-line coaches in the country, it just made sense on so many levels. And to add a coach of his caliber was perfect.
Question on the front right.
Hey, Coach. Shahan Jairaj at diehards.com. You guys had Sterling Shepard before, then you have D.D. Westbrook. Is there a guy who you think that could be that caliber of receiver, or how do you replace those types of guys?
Yeah, we had to answer that question a lot last year, and then D.D. was able to obviously have a great year, really get on a run there through the Big 12 schedule. It'll be interesting. I think we can replace the production. Will we replace it with one player? I don't know. If we do, that's great, and if we don't, if it's a little bit more spread out, that's fine too. I do think, looking at our receiving core, that we will be more deep and a little bit more talented than we've been across the board in the previous 2 years that I've been there. So, we've got some guys kind of like Dede was as a junior that are right on the verge. Jeff Mead, Mark Andrews, Nick Basquin, those guys that have made some plays that are right on the verge, and then some new exciting young players, along with the graduate transfer Jeff Badette, that we think are, we've got the right guys in there. We've just got to get them in the right spot, and then just kind of see how they grow.
Question on the aisle, and then we're going to do just a second on the aisle, and then we'll go over there. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Brian Davis, the Austin American-Statesman. Based on some of the things you're saying, you sound like Stoops, and it freaks me out a little bit. How do you take the things that you learned from him, that you gleaned from him, the way he did things, and then try to be your own man?
Sure. That's probably the biggest and, in my opinion, best piece of coaching advice that I've gotten, since this has happened is. And that'll be one of my challenges, is to find a way to still be myself but not discount all the lessons from him and the other guys that I've worked for and with over the past several years. I think it's a little bit easier in that I think he and I are very similar. I told somebody earlier, had I left and taken a head job somewhere else, I would have carried a lot of things that he does with me, just because I think he's really good, and I think it's kind of proven the test of time. His sustained success is, there's very few that have anything that even close to compare to the kind of career he had at Oklahoma. So, but that's something I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with myself and being myself. I don't have an ego in this, and that I say, well, I got to change things just because now I'm the head coach, and I don't want it to seem like, that I'm just trying to be, Bob Stoops 2.0 or whatever you want to call it. I want to use the things I think are right, and if there's a few things I think that fit my personality better or think can help us as a team, then I'm certainly not going to hesitate to do those either.
Final question for Coach over on the right-hand side.
Mark Tracy from the New York Times. Talk about putting your staff together. How much on your radar has been the kind of trend among some teams in this conference and in some others to have really a whole lot of, obviously, assistant coaches are capped, but a whole lot of other kinds of analysts, coaches, et cetera. How have you dealt with that trend?
Sure. Yeah, great question. Probably somewhere in the middle. I know there's some temptation to think the more people that you bring in is better, more people, more hours, more work gets done. But I think at the same time, I think there's two issues. One, I think if everybody's not completely and wholly invested, you maybe can have a little bit of diminished returns. I think you got to create an environment where everybody's got something to do and what they do is important and everybody can work together well. And then I think there's also, the more people that you bring in, the bigger chance there is of having somebody that's not all in, not as invested. And I think that can hurt a staff, hurt a team faster than anything. So I think hopefully we found a good mix of enough analysts and off-the-field positions to help us get done what we need to get done. But I never want to have guys just to have them. I want it to be because we know they're totally invested in our program and in our student-athletes, and just as much invested in wins and losses and graduations and player development and all those things as I am and every other person in the program is.